Okay, well, it looks like everybody is joining the call, so I think we're just going to go ahead and kick things off. So thank you for joining, first of all. It's awesome to see all of these faces. I'm scrolling through right now. Um, yeah, so this is going to be a Q&A call with me and Bonnie around the topic of how to earn a living in surface design and art licensing. So a lot of people pre-submitted questions, so we're going to start with those for the first half of the call. And then in the second half, we're going to be answering questions from the chat. And this is also an opportunity for Bonnie to be talking about Immersion, which only runs once a year. It's her big course, and enrollment is open right now, and doors close on Tuesday. So without further ado, I think we'll just kick things off. So I'll introduce myself. I'll keep it quick because you probably already know who I am since I invited my own audience to this call, but my name is CatCoq, and I license my artwork and I travel the world full time. So I've been doing this since this is my 10-year anniversary, 10 years. Okay, 2014.
Wow.
This is the first time I realized that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I've been basically doing this for the last 10 years, licensing my artwork. I have partnerships with Target, Anthropologie, ModCloth, Urban Outfitters, and more. And I'm also a teacher. I have online classes that teach everything from watercolor and drawing to business skills and art licensing, creative businesses, things like that. And I'm very excited to be joined today by Bonnie Christine. Bonnie, I'm just going to let you take it from here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Kat, thank you so much for having me. You and I kind of started to fall in love with each other about a year and change, a couple of years ago. Now it's been
Yeah.
like 2 years. And I love your world so much. I love how you approach surface design. It's a little bit different than me. And so I think that us together just gives like this really nice broad overview of what's possible. We're here to talk about what's possible. And there's so many different ways that you can use surface design to just build a life and a career that you love. For Kat, traveling the world, for me, living in a tiny, tiny town in the mountains of North Carolina, it's like just the possibilities just kind of open up. So with that, I'm Bonnie. Thank you so much for having me here. I am a surface pattern designer. I am a mom. I am a educator for creatives, and I'm thrilled to be here. So I got my start back in, I started learning surface design back in 2010, and I started licensing in 2012. This time period for me was difficult. Kat, I don't know that we've ever talked about your origin story, but learning surface design back then it was really difficult. I wasn't an artist. I also did not go to art school. And so I really had this dream to become a fabric designer and started to just kind of piecemeal and puzzle piece my education together. And it was really one of the most difficult things I've ever done. It took 2 years of really tremendous focus and progress every day in order to kind of get my mind wrapped around everything that I needed to learn. It took me a year, Kat, to make my first repeat pattern, a year. And at the end of 2 years, I found myself walking quilt market with my portfolio in hand, and I left that show with my first licensing contract. So that for me was really the moment that changed everything for me. I had really just never had something so impossible come true for me in my life. And so it had been really so difficult. Like the timing of this for me was also a time where there really wasn't any resources available. There were no online classes at this time. There weren't even really that many. There was not Instagram at this time. And there wasn't like any really platforms that were having teachers host classes and things like that. So I very much wasted a lot of time figuring out what to learn, how to learn. I also wasted time learning things I didn't need to know because I didn't know better. And it kind of left me like it felt like the industry was very closed, like very held close to the chest. And I remember coming through that process just with this ache in my heart for like, let's kind of break this open. Let's kind of pave the way for anyone else, if I can, to help them kind of learn what they need to learn and nothing that they don't need to learn. though, even though I had that kind of pull, education was not on my radar. I didn't set out to become a teacher. The opportunity really fell into my lap in 2013. And I had this company, they're called Creative Live, reach out to me to see if I would want to teach live. And I didn't. I did not want to do that. It was the most nerve-wracking thing for me ever. But it was an opportunity that I could not say no to. So they whisked me off to San Francisco, across the country, and they put me in front of a live audience, as well as tens of thousands of people watching online. And I taught Adobe Illustrator for Surface Design for 3 days. I almost died from the news and did it. I did it. I made it through. And, I got back home and just felt like, phew, now I can get back to like doing what I set out to do, which was design. And for me, what happened was a bit of a slow process, but I started to hear from students within the following subsequent weeks and months. And I was specifically hearing from women who had just gotten permission to follow their dream, to reconnect with their creativity, to use their creativity to create income. And eventually, in the subsequent months, was hearing from people all over the world who had started to contribute income to their families, who were able to quit a day job that they had wanted to quit for a long time, who were able to stay at home with their family, their small children, or who were able to start traveling. And eventually people who were able to really like retire or bring home their spouse from the workforce, just incredible stories. And it just crept into my life and into my heart, and my calling transitioned into really being that for anyone who wanted a way to create a career and a life that they love. That my calling was to make that as easy as possible. And so that long story is all about how Surface Design Immersion came to be, why I birthed that class. It is immersive, it is big, and I taught it for the first time in 2018. So this is its 6th year. And it's also brand new this year. It's all expanded, re-recorded, and enhanced, and we're very excited to be welcoming students. So that's an overview of who I am and how I got to where I am today.
I like that. I knew snippets of that, but I don't think I knew all of the details. I can't imagine my first teaching experience being tossed in a room with a live audience and live broadcasting. That sounds.
There was like hair and makeup. They like plucked me out of like no man's land, and I was just like what is happening to me? But it was incredible.
It's good though. That was a big point in your career. I mean, it shifted a lot of things for you. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should just get right into it. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with the questions that were pre-submitted. I went through each and every single question. There were over 300 that you guys pre-submitted. It is awesome. So, let's just do 6 hours. No, we're gonna keep it to an hour. But what I did is I sorted the questions and I prioritized them based off of similar questions and what people were really wanting to know. So I'm hoping we can just get through, all of the things that you guys are really, really, quenching for. And during the second half of the call, Bonnie and I will be answering questions that come in live from the chat. So at any point during this call, if you have any questions for us, just pop it in the chat. And my friend Amy is moderating. She'll be organizing all those questions for us so we can get to those during the second half of the call. The biggest question that we had was all circulating around, surprise, surprise, income. So income in this industry. So Bonnie,
Yeah.
the first question is for you, and it's from Jessica. And she wants to know, how realistic is it to make a living from licensing nowadays and be able to support oneself financially? I realize multiple streams of income is a good idea.
Yeah, so you're definitely on the right track. This is absolutely not only possible, but completely accessible. So we track students. We actually track our success specifically with this course, not on the front end. So not in how many students we have, but on the back end. How many success stories do we have? How many students do we get through this course, and do we get them creating income from their artwork? And so we have success stories or student stories from hundreds and hundreds of our alum that I would welcome you to dive into. And so we hear every single year, I mean, just an incredible amount of students who have started earning full-time wages, and then many, many who they set out to do a side hustle, right? They didn't set out to necessarily replace a full-time income. The interesting thing about licensing, right, is that we're going to talk in general terms because every contract is different. But in general, contracts are industry specific. And so if you create one piece of artwork, you can license that in an industry, let's say fabric, and then you can take the same piece of art and license it across multiple different industries. So you could go to wallpaper, stationery, home textiles, tech devices, all of these others. And then again, part of the course is teaching you how to understand contracts, but also how to negotiate contracts. Because another key point in negotiating, Kat, I know you're a big fan of this, is territory. So oftentimes you'll get a contract for an industry worldwide. That's a great point of negotiation. Could you do this industry for this country? So maybe it's fabric in the United States, which would open you up for fabric in Japan as well. So oftentimes it takes a little bit of time for you to get that ball rolling. But my goodness, when the ball begins to roll, one piece of artwork can create income for you for years and years and years. And that's where we want to focus our efforts, right? So part of my story I didn't share was when I was learning, part of how we kind of made ends meet was that I sold on Etsy. I was selling handmade aprons and tea towels, and I was trading time for money. I would make an apron, I would sell it, and then nothing until I made another apron and I sold it. And I calculated based on me being a one-woman show, if I made as many aprons in a day that I could, and I sold out, and I did that 5 days a week for a whole year, I could make potentially $40,000. And that exhausted me. I did not want to make that many aprons. And so I got really clear on wanting to create revenue that was not trading time for money, but that was with no ceiling. So residual income or recurring revenue. And licensing is one of many, many different types of revenue generators that is based on percentages. So like Cat can license a piece of work, and theoretically, it could make thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars based on how well it does in the industry, right? So that's what you kind of want to look for is like, well, the sky's the limit. And then you want to layer in as many of those as you can. So this is where multiple streams of revenue comes in. And I think that that's just good business. You don't necessarily want all your eggs in one basket. So you want to license across many industries. You want to license across many different types of art. You also want to consider different types of income from your art. So maybe you also offer digital goods. Maybe you offer something like assets on Creative Market or an ebook that is downloadable. Maybe you also do graphic design work on the side or sell some work outright on the side. So there's many, many different ways to layer in revenue so that it stops doing this and it starts doing like this. And that's the real beauty that you get to. So anyways, I think if we really want to talk numbers, I'm not afraid of that. I think if you reference that book, what's it called? It's really long. It's like the Graphic Guild's Guide to
Yeah,
one.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's about pricing and licensing rates.
It's
Yeah.
about pricing and licensing, and they say on average a surface pattern designer from their surface design work alone can expect to make around 40 to 60,000 a year. And I think that that's probably a fair guess for that one revenue stream. And so I think when you start layering is when things get really interesting. I make 6 figures a year from my licensing alone, and I think that's kind of interesting because it's not something that I have put a lot of effort into in the last couple of years. I know many, many, many students who are making 6 figures, multiple 6 figures with their work. So yes, I know we have a very international audience. I'm US based, so everything I say is going to be US based. Yeah, Kat, what would you say? What would you add to that?
Oh man, I think you hit the nail on the head. When I was first getting started, I was trying to diversify my income as much as possible because honestly, I kept waiting for, the other the other shoe to fall. I was just thinking like, oh, this is too good to be true. I was making money originally through print on demand through Society6. And the reason that I was pursuing passive income was because I was also working a full-time job. And so it was the only other way I could earn income. I asked my bosses for a raise once and they said I should look at, working a job on the weekends. And I'm like, oh God, are you kidding me? So yeah. So I was pursuing passive income because it was the only way that I could continue earning money with a full-time job, which, spoiler alert, I eventually left so that I could pursue this full-time. So the way that I diversified my income streams over the years have been print on demand, art licensing. I used to go to art and craft shows. I would rent out booth space and sell originals, sell prints. I had an Etsy shop where I would ship out prints and products. I did pre-sales on my website. I lived in Kansas City at the time, and I would go to stores around Kansas City to see if they would carry any of my products like tote bags or coffee mugs or art prints, and then sell consignment. Online education is also another component of my income. And so I'm just diversifying everything as much as I can. I set up a supply recommendations page on my website for affiliate links through Amazon. So it's like as many different ways that I can kind of get the feelers out there. What that does is it really protects my income in case, something does go wrong. Like at the beginning of COVID, like March 2020, a lot of stores were closing down and I lost over 50% of my art licensing income just overnight. I had a lot of frantic calls with my agents, but that eventually came back, and then some when stores reopened, especially in spaces where people were working on home decor projects like wallpaper. That was a great time to be in wallpaper. And that's when it soared to the top of my portfolio. So like Bonnie, I'm also making six figures through art licensing alone. And it's kind of been the backbone of my brand from the beginning. So it's not easy to get here. It takes a lot of, talent, grit, patience, perseverance, luck has a lot to do with it. It's a lot of work to get here, but but it's possible is what I want to say. So yeah, there is hope. Well, the next question is also about income and earning. It's for me and it's from Danny. And she asks, of all of the different income streams and licensing categories, for example, fabric, gift, greeting cards, etc., which would you say gives you the most juice for the squeeze? So Danny, I love the way you phrase that. So what is earning me the most money through art licensing? It fluctuates every year. Like I mentioned, 2020 was a big year for wallpaper for me. So actually, I'll just use that as the example here. For the most part, the key for what earns me the most in terms of licensing categories is going to be whatever sells the most quantity of products, especially ones that are at a larger price point. So my wallpaper sells for $40 a roll. So that's kind of the pricing I'm talking about. And my wallpaper partner, they're called Roommates Decor. They just have a massive product placement. They work with stores like Target, Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond. They sell online. And so what that means is they're selling a lot of products. So that's the kind of equation that earns me the bulk of my licensing income. It's a higher price point product and they're selling a lot of it. But, and I have to put this out there, even the lower price point stuff like greeting cards can really add up if there is a huge quantity of sales. Don't disregard the smaller price point stuff because it can actually be pretty lucrative as well. I looked up the numbers before this call, and one of my most profitable art licensing partners of last year was actually in the stationery and gifting space. So it's all very affordable products, but the bulk of sales alone is just huge. And that's really what moves the needle for me in terms of earnings. All right, Bonnie, next question is for you. It's around pitching and pricing. It is from Mary Claire, and she asks, hey, Kat and Bonnie, I'm a beginner here, and I have created 5 collections of greeting cards, and I've emailed and pitched to about 30 companies so far. So she's on the right track. Many responses I receive say they will reach out if they see anything they like. How long should I wait to resubmit new greeting card designs to a company with this type of response? And how long should I wait to submit to a company that replies, no thanks, not at this time?
Okay, great question. You're definitely on to the right mark. First of all, I suggest pitching. We'll try to touch on everything that you asked there and unpack it. I suggest pitching in tiers. This is one of the things that's so interesting, Kat, because I have no idea how you approach pitching. I'll tell you how I approach.
This is why I directed the question to you. I was like, I want to hear Bonnie's answer.
I love it. There's a million different ways to do it, but I suggest pitching in tiers because you will likely have in one industry. So you can branch out after that, but start with one industry. So in your case, stationery, right? And so you'll identify your very top tier companies. This may be 3, 5, probably less than 10 companies who would be like, hallelujah, you have arrived if you get a licensing contract with these companies, right? And then I like to have a second tier and a third tier. Now, all of these companies are a good representation of people that I would be proud to work with, but that mid tier, I'm still going to be incredibly excited about, right? It's going to be an absolute yes. The bottom tier is still a yes, meaning they still align with me. I would be proud to work with them, but they're much smaller opportunities. They may be local opportunities. They're just smaller opportunities. What you want to avoid is pitching to a tier 1, 2, and 3 at the same time, because you'll hear back from ones first, twos second, and thirds last, because the people at the top tier are the busiest. They're the biggest, they're the busiest, and they will take the longest to get back to you. And so you don't want to be in a position where you've got an offer on the table, but you're still waiting to hear back from this dream company, and now you don't know what to do. So pitch in those tiers. So I would start with your top tier, pitch to them. And if you don't hear back at all, I would continue to reach out. I like every 2 weeks for maybe like 4 to 5 times. You certainly want to be respectful, not pushy. You want to be concise. You want to be kind. Of course, all of those good things. And so you don't need to go too hard, but I do think because they're so busy that it's nice to just kind of get in their ear a little bit, and continue to follow up until you hear back from them. Now, if you hear back a no, what I like to do is, first of all, be so gracious that they took the time to review your work. Ask them if there's any way that they would provide any amount of feedback for you. This feedback can be difficult to hear, but it will be what refines your work and helps you improve over the time. And it could also be kind of some salve to the no, right? Like maybe it's just that they loved your work, but they're not open for a new artist right now. So if you could just, they may not be willing or able to give feedback, but if they do, it would be really valuable. And then number 2, I would ask them if they would be willing to get maybe quarterly updates for you on upcoming new artwork. And so in that capacity, it's not really growing an email list. It's more like growing a contact list. And so that way you could send a newsletter to everyone who's agreed to get maybe quarterly updates from you with like, hey, this is what's new. This is what's new on my in my portfolio, the new work that I'm working on. You could always in that newsletter highlight any recent opportunities that you've had, like magazine features or social media features, or if you've been pitching, maybe you've been in like an incredible featured on a website, or you've had another licensing opportunity. It could just be kind of this update like, hi, I'm still here. And it's a great way to stay in contact with those potential licensors and continue to get new work in front of them. Because to your point, 30 is not enough, would you say, Kat? Like, keep going. Sometimes I hear people like, I pitched 5 times and I heard no and I'm done. I'm like, no. If you get 1 yes and 99 no's, that is a win. So you really have to just continue to pitch and then build those contacts along the way. Sometimes they just want to know that you're willing to stick around. Sometimes they just want to see your work for a little bit of time, to trust your ability to stay around and your longevity, but also the style of work. Do you have anything to add, and did I miss anything?
Honestly, I had never heard the strategy of asking if you could send quarterly updates in an email newsletter format. I think that's really smart. That's fabulous advice. The only thing I would add to is some things I've tried in the past that have been successful is I've asked them if they could send like a trends PDF of what they're forecasting that they want to be licensing for the next year or next 2 years. Usually it works pretty far in advance. And then that way, what I can do on my end is create a custom PDF. If it's a dream client, you can't do this custom curated PDF for 100 different clients. But if you have your dream client and you really want to work with them. I've asked for trends PDFs in the past to see what they want to be pitching, and then I can curate what I send to them based off of what I know they're actively looking for. It's hit or miss. Sometimes this is proprietary and they won't share unless you're already under an active licensing agreement, but it never hurts to ask. And the other thing that's been helpful for me in the past is curating a PDF, again, based off of that client. And that can be as simple as having like the first page of the PDF just say, hello, comma, brand name, and then you put your, your standard PDF after it, your best-selling work, or the best work you have in your portfolio, contact information, all of that. And just that simple header page is enough for that they feel like it's been this very curated portfolio specifically for them. If you do go that route of hello, comma, whoever their brand is, and you want to make it curated, you should also make it a little bit curated to that brand. If you're pitching to Anthropologie, it's going to be a much different audience than a pitch to, TJ Maxx or Walmart. So just kind of keep those things in mind. All right, next question is also back to income and earning. We had a lot of these, and it is from Mandy, and she asks me, how many art licensing contracts do you have active at any one time? So I also looked this up before the call because I wanted to get the right numbers here. So the exact numbers themselves are always changing, but at this very moment, I have 59 active contracts. And in addition to that, I have 3 that are currently being negotiated, 40 that either the licensee or I decided not to proceed with, and then 61 old ones that have kind of run their course and been expired. So it's a lot
I
to
love
juggle at
those
once.
I love those numbers.
This is why I do pre-submitted, because I'm like, I got to pull up my Google Docs and look these things up.
Right.
So yeah, pretty simple though. All right, next one is about mindset. So we had a lot of questions in this realm as well. I know personally it's something that I struggled with at the beginning of my career. Bonnie, you shared that earlier as well. But yes, so Bonnie, the question is for you, and it's from Christy. And she says, I am so overwhelmed by the comparison monster. I've come so far, learned so much. I feel like I'm finding my groove, and then I see a pattern or illustration and it all goes out the door. How do you overcome that? What advice or points do you have for self-doubt?
Well, I've got a short answer and a long answer. There's one very easy way to overcome this, and it's to stop looking around. I think that we have to be careful, like careful little eyes what you see. We have to really take ownership of our own gremlins, our own villains, right? And so what are you allowing into your consumption, and how does that make you feel? And you have to be able to own that experience. It's not happening to you, you're letting it happen. So are you letting your feed be filled with things that make you feel a specific way? If so, then unfollow. Stop looking, keep your eyes on your own paper. You will absolutely see something that it's all been done before, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So if you have an idea and then you go looking, you're going to find something that's going to throw you off. So first of all, just take extreme ownership over what you allow yourself to consume. It couldn't be more important. Your headspace is the most important thing when it comes to creation. So why are we even looking? But number 2 is that I like to focus on my why. And you all have a why. This is going to require like some careful thinking to really get to the bottom of your why, because I might ask you like, why do you want to be a surface pattern designer? And you might be like, well, because I want to make money. Okay, well, why? So there's this practice of asking why 7 times. And on the 7th time, you get to the root cause, the root why of what you're doing. And when you get really, really clear about your why, then all of your worries just kind of fall to the wayside. And so one of my whys is the people that are coming behind me. We have to understand that there will always be people ahead of us, always. There's always people doing more, better things than we are. But there are also always going to be people behind us. And so when we focus on helping the person who we're just one step ahead of, right? Like you have no idea what someone seeing your art, what impact that would have. It could be something silly. It could be a donut with a smiley face on it. And it could literally completely impact someone's day. And had you not shared that because you saw someone else's donut that looked better than yours, then you lost the opportunity to impact the one person who is looking to you for inspiration or for you for a note that day. So I would get really clear on your why. And when you're really clear on that, nothing else anybody else is doing matters. It doesn't matter. It only matters what you're doing and the impact that you want to have with your work.
Man, that is a great answer because Bonnie, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, no matter what your style is, your motifs, like there's always going to be someone doing something a little bit similar. I love doing watercolor florals, and there's a lot of artists out there that do watercolor florals. And I'm glad I didn't let that discourage me from even pursuing it in the first place because, even though there's similar artwork out there, I have my own distinct voice to share, my story to share with my audience. And that's really powerful. And it's so much better to be putting my artwork out there and painting what I love to paint rather than not getting started in the first place because someone does it better. Of course, there's going to be better people than me out there in so many categories. Like I'm never going to be the best at anything. And that's okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. I,
Okay.
I love it. Okay, so the next question is for me, and it's from Anastasia, and she wants to know, is print on demand still a viable income stream? I get this question all the time as well. So again, I looked up my numbers before this call, so I'm just going to run through it. So print on demand used to be my primary income stream for several years, and it was pretty lucrative at the time. But, and here's the caveat, I got started with print on demand back in 2014. So in 2015, I made over $100,000 through print on demand alone, and 90% of that was through Society6. Same with
Wow.
2016. Yeah, it was a good time. Same with 2016, same with 2017. This is that side income I was talking about that allowed me to quit my job and pursue being an artist full time. But then in 2018, my print on demand income, it fell below 100,000 and it's been falling every year since. So I looked it up. Last year, I made just shy of $20,000 through all of my print on demand websites. So there's a lot of factors on why it dipped down so heavily for me, but a really big one is exactly what this question was asking. It's that the print on demand market itself is really saturated and therefore it's pretty competitive. So another factor is I spend a lot less time nurturing and curating my print on demand sites than I did 10 years ago. So my recommendation for anyone wanting to pursue print on demand, it's not so far out of reach that you can't get in. You can still get involved, but really set those expectations and those parameters. So my advice for most people now is to spend between 5, 10, maybe even 15% of your time working on print on demand because it's probably only going to represent 5, 10, or 15% of your overall income. So I recommend trying that out for a month or two, seeing how it fits. And if you can't get to a place where you can justify the time you spend on print on demand, then maybe it's time to move on to something else. And so really this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, why diversifying your income is so important. Just because something's working now doesn't mean it's going to work 5 or 10 years down the road. So yeah, I'm still active on print on demand. $20,000 a year is nothing to shy away from, but I'm a lot more I guess I spend a lot less time on it. I spend more time on things that are actively earning me higher income. So yeah. Bonnie, next question is for you, and it's from Lisa. And she says, can you talk us through how you got your first break, considering how overwhelming the options are and all of the advice on the internet these days? It's incredibly confusing. Where do I start?
Yes. So I think that I will tell you about my first break, and I'm with you. I think that there is a lot of information. And so this is what I do when I'm looking for something. I identify one person and I go all in. I identify one person who has done what I want to do and who, resonates with the way that I want to learn. And I focus on the one person because just to your point, there are so many different ways to really get to the same place. And when you start hearing it from all over the place, then your path has become very windy with lots of forks in the road. And so you want one path to follow that will get you to the same place. It's going to reduce the amount of time that you have to focus on it. I mentioned it already. My really big break was that quilt market visit in 2012. And so I had been pitching my work for about 6 months. I was so green. I was such a beginner. I was pitching one at a time. So I would pitch and then I would wait. And I had sent like a physical portfolio. So I would wait for them to send it back before I moved on to the next one. So it took me like 6 months to pitch to 3 companies. It was, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Not what I suggest now. Because of that, I was able to attend Quilt Market. This is somewhat unique to me. It's not something that I even necessarily recommend. This is a trade show that's closed to the public, so you have to have credentials to be able to go, which I did because of working at Mom's Quilt Shop. So I reached out ahead of time and I booked appointments for while I was there. And I do think that my takeaway for you is the power of face-to-face or voice-to-voice communication. I think that in a world where none of us are comfortable with that, we would so much rather text than call. We would so much rather email than Zoom, right? That it is becoming a more lost and lost art. And so when you're able to have a phone conversation or have a Zoom call or meet face to face, which is somewhat rare, that it is an incredible opportunity to connect. So I went to Quilt Market to have meetings. I was there for 3 days, and my number one company, my meeting was on day number 2. So I had about 6 already, 4 or 6, something like that. I had one offer that just didn't align in my gut. It wasn't, yeah, it just didn't align in my heart of hearts. So I didn't take it. And then I had gotten a lot of feedback. So I was feeling like I was probably going to go home and have a lot of legwork, a lot of follow-up to do. And on the second day, that's when I really walked away from that whole experience with a licensing contract with my dream company for fabric. So I'm still with them today. I have a new fabric collection coming out in, I don't know, about the next month or so. And so that was my biggest one. And it kind of, it kind of like spawned off all of these other licensing contracts for me around the same time and subsequently since as well. So yeah, that was it.
I love that. Yeah, it's well, first of all, congratulations on your new collection launching later this month. That's
Thank you.
awesome. I can't wait to see it. So yeah, I think I'll answer one more question and I'll keep it on that same kind of realm around like portfolio licensing collections. And it's a question from Sky. And she asked me, as a freelance illustrator, I'm excited to pivot into art licensing, but I have little to no knowledge about the business behind it. Coming from this perspective and starting my licensing portfolio from scratch, when creating collections to pitch to buyers, what would you say are the most important elements to include? This is great timing for this question because this last year, starting in 2023, leading up to now, I've just been doing a lot of back and forth with my agents around collections and really polishing up my collections, getting them ready to pitch. And so I'm good on this. I can answer this one pretty well. Start with 4 or 5 collections. And the 5 categories should be global, which is kind of is like this evergreen generic kind of category where, let's say if it was like tabletop or plates, it could kind of go for any occasion. So global, fall, holiday, like Christmas time, winter holiday, summer, and then some collection that's unique to your own art style that still kind of hits on a mass trend. So for example, in this kind of like hit everything category, I've done coastal, mushrooms, floral, travel, and probably a few others. So it's just things that are also really trendy, but also relate to my own style. And then for each of these categories of your collections, you want to display your work in the best possible light. So you want to have a nice range of like flat JPEGs that kind of show exactly what your design looks like. And then either product photos, if you don't have it on a product because you're pitching the collection, that makes sense. That's when mock-ups come into play. Mock-ups are just digital files that that look like it's a pillow, but really it's just a digital file. It looks like a photo of a pillow or a bedspread or something. I use mock-ups all the time just to show my licensees what my artwork can look like on a product that they use. And then within these collections, I do both patterns and then standalone artwork. Patterns are fabulous. They're kind of a catch-all. They're great for covering an entire product, whereas the standalone pieces or like spot illustrations are great for framed wall art or like journal cover stickers, things like that. So in like a recent product collections deck that I just created for my agents to showcase this quarter at all the trade shows, one of the categories I focused on was kitchen and tabletop, because that's a category that I don't have a lot in my portfolio right now. So what I did is I showed my art on plates and napkins and placemats. I showed the patterns on those pieces or the spot illustrations on like the tumblers, things like that. So basically, really look for an opportunity to show your art in the best light. And if you can group them into designs that can be licensed together, that's going to make it even stronger. So when I started art licensing, I was mostly licensing individual pieces, mostly in wall art was my biggest product category when I was getting started. But now, since I've started showcasing my work together, grouped into collections, it's really amped up my income, because licensees are now not just licensing one-off pieces, they're pulling, 10 or a dozen from a collection all together to license on an entire product collection itself. So that's been a big benefit for me as well. Bonnie, anything to add there on how you present your work with collections? I know this is one of your strengths.
I love working in collections. I was just answering a couple of questions in the chat. So yeah, we work a little differently. I will release like a collection based on a story. So do you use story in your work at
I do.
you
I
do it?
do.
Yeah, okay. So for me, my kind of home industry is fabric. So we always work in collections. We typically do one collection that's generally 8 to 12 prints, and then we offer that in 2 different colorways. But collections I have found are super beneficial for many industries. Even something like wallpaper, which is a one-off print, right? Someone may choose wallpaper from the same collection for their entire house. Stationery is a big one, so that you can have like a stationery suite with patterns that play off of each other. I also think that it just offers a really unique representation of you, the artist, because all of the sudden now you have to show your ability to pull a collection together that is cohesive. So on a common theme that is well balanced in color and scale and complexity. And so I find that students typically have more success when they're pitching, when they've got this really cohesive, well-rounded collection or multiple collections to present, because it really shows like your ability as an artist to visualize what that would look like.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we are going to move on to the questions from the chat that are coming in. I think we've got a lot coming, so I'm just going to get started and dive right in. The first question is for you, Bonnie. It's from Sarah. And she says, in the course modules for Immersion, are there actionable goals like checklists to be sure that we're keeping on track? It's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information, but it's not too much. So I'm going to show you something. We're really proud of this. So students get what we call a box experience. And so you get a box full of things specific to your success in the course, but you also get a course workbook. So this is the course workbook for this year. It's tabbed by module and it goes lesson by lesson. So at the beginning of each module, you'll have a checklist of all, it's called the module checklist of all of the lessons in that module. Then we work through lesson by lesson so that you can have this really alongside you the entire time. So we build, these lessons are, there are 226 lessons in the 2024 course dispersed over 8 modules, but they're bite-sized, right? So typically they're 4 to 8 minutes, give or take some that may be a little longer, but for the most part, they're bite-sized and they build on each other. So you will do one lesson and then you'll typically have an action assignment. So you'll be maybe downloading an exercise from that lesson to play with yourself, or you'll have something to build from that lesson, or you'll have something to write down or some kind of task action to work alongside that lesson. So the whole course really super builds on itself. So we never go we never go beyond what you're ready for. We very methodically build from one module and one lesson to the next lesson. So if you want a good overview of everything, we've got that over on the course page. We have modules where you can kind of click to expand and do a deep dive into everything that every module will really cover. So happy to talk more about that if I wasn't clear enough, though.
I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. As always, I love your organizations. That's fabulous.
You
Um,
got to be organized.
yeah, it's true. It's true.
You know, one more thing I'll say too that's brand new this year is that we released this course over 8 weeks. And we always have students, especially because you get lifetime access, we always have students go through it at different paces. Some of them go through it in real time, some of them take longer. And we always say, there's no such thing as behind. There's no such thing as behind. You can work through it at your own pace, but still students feel like they're behind if they're not exactly up to date. So one thing that we've introduced this year is different learning pathways. And so you can come in and these are nothing more than a checklist, right? But we've done the work for you. So we've dispersed the course into a real time. So you're going to do it in real time, or a 3-month, 6-month, or 12-month option. Now you get the course in the same, you get the course in 8 weeks, no matter what, but these learning pathways just really give you permission to say, no, I'm on the 6-month pathway or the 3-month pathway, and I'm on track for the pathway that I chose. And our hope is that it really helps you confidently move through the course because you've done your checklist for this week. You're on a pathway that we've set for you, and you're going to get to the finish line with no problem. So this is something that we're aware of and always working to just make it very easy for you inside the course.
I love that. I know I've said this before, but I do wish Immersion would have been around when I was getting started because I had no idea what I was doing.
It could have saved me a good like about 2 years.
More for me, man. It was a struggle. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can lightning fire through this next question. It's pretty simple. It's about copyright. It's a question from Allie, and she wants to know, is it necessary to officially copyright every work before licensing, and what's the process? So short and sweet answer. And by the way, this applies to a US Copyright Office. I don't know what it looks like in other countries, so I'm speaking about the US here. It costs $65 per design to officially copyright through the US Copyright Office. I do not register copyrights for my entire portfolio. That just wouldn't make sense financially. It would be way too expensive. But what I do is I register copyrights for designs that get picked up for licensing deals. Because when it gets picked up for licensing, it's going to mean more exposure for that design, which means an increased risk of someone stealing it. So at this point, I have copyrights for all of the top sellers in my portfolio and everything that's getting licensed that I filed through the US Copyright Office for $65 a pop. But I want to put a caveat in here. You should know that as soon as you create something and publish it in any capacity that has a timestamp, like an email to yourself or on Instagram or Dropbox, whatever, you own the informal copyright to that piece. Your copyright is your copyright. You own it no matter if you have it officially registered through the US Copyright Office or not. But the benefit of registering it through the US Copyright Office is if someone does rip off that design, you can settle or sue for much more money than you would otherwise if you didn't have it formally registered. But I have had several settlements in the past few years with companies that have stolen my artwork. It happens, it's unfortunate, but I've been able to go after them. So I've hired lawyers when I need to go after a company that steals my artwork. And so far, most of my settlements have happened when a company stole a piece of artwork, used it on their product, and I did not have an officially filed copyright, excuse me, for that piece. And I was still able to send a cease and desist, get them to stop, earn a nice chunk in settlement. So if you decide to copyright, it gives you more gains if you want to go after someone that infringes upon you, but it's not necessary. You can defend your copyright no matter what, if it's registered or not. So yeah. Bonnie, have you ever had to deal with copyright infringement issues?
A little bit. And, I think I work in a similar way. So I copyright my work. It's like putting on a seatbelt, right? But if you know that you won't take legal action, then that's really the only reason that you copyright your work, is so that you can take legal action if you were to get infringed upon. The only thing that I would add to that is that if you do work in collections and you copyright them before they've been published, you can save a significant amount of money because you can copyright the collection together. But the caveat to that, and let's just say that me and Kat are not lawyers, so do your own research, absolutely, but this is our understanding. So publishing means made available for sale, posted online, right? So you can copyright it just before that, do it in a collection, and save quite a lot of money as well.
Awesome. All right, so we have time for one final question, and it's going to be for Bonnie, and it's from Nikki. And she wants to know, my biggest question is, where do I start and how do I make it a reality? So throwing the big one over to you.
Well, it's very complicated. You simply start, my dear. You simply start. Starting is the hardest part. It is what took me a long time. I don't know that I shared this. Everything I've said is running together in my mind. But did I say that I didn't take action for 6 months? Did I say that? So I kind of had this dream, and then 6 months went by where I did nothing because of this overwhelm of this question of like, how do I start? And then I realized, oh, I just need to start. And so I started doing one thing every day to inch me closer to that dream coming true. And I tracked it, and I was a little obsessed with it, and I didn't miss a day, not for 2 years. And so for me, 15 minutes is what counted. So if I contributed 15 minutes a day to inching towards that goal, then I got to check off my one thing a day. And at the end of 2 years is when I went from 0 to 100. And I would love to say that you can do it so much more quickly and so much more easily than I did. We have students go from 0 to 100 in 8 weeks every year, 12 weeks, 6 months, every single year. Stories of people getting licensing contracts on the day they graduate or 2 weeks after they graduate from the immersion course. So I would say simply starts. If you're here, you get to count today. You started today. So tomorrow, do your one thing towards accomplishing this dream, and don't break that chain. Continue to make progress. Research counts, reading counts, just make progress, because one question will lead to one answer, which will spawn a new question. You don't have to know what it all looks like. You just have to consistently come to the table and take action. And then the next thing I would say, I've discussed the immersion course a lot. This is the easiest way to get you. You can be a surface designer by summer, or if you're in Australia, by winter, right? Like, it is an 8-week transformation to everything that you need in your tool belt if you want to make this a reality for yourself. So I would very much say, like, what is the investment in this education worth to you, and how much time and how much is saving yourself time worth for you as well? So can you do it on your own? Absolutely. Will it take you longer? Absolutely, is just the truth. And so you have to kind of really get comfortable with, what are you willing? Are you willing to do it more quickly, or would you rather it take longer? There's a payoff on both sides. But you can absolutely do this. We see it happened thousands of times, and we'd love to see it happen for you as well.
Oh man, Bonnie, you were the best at just encouragement. And I mean, I'm excited. It's 1 a.m. in Thailand, and I'm like, I've got stuff to do after this.
Yeah, you got to go to bed, Kat.
I know, I gotta go to bed. Oh man. Well, that was honestly, that was a fabulous answer. And on any time we hop on calls like this, I just feel motivated, encouraged. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. We've got to get together, Kat. Let me know.
Come fly to Chiang Mai when you're finished.
Do that. I might do that. You're just such a delight. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for tuning in and joining. I know we had a ton of questions come in, and we got through as many as we possibly could in our hour together. But keep an eye out for future blog posts. I've copied everything from the chat so I can answer these questions and future content for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And just a reminder that the recording will be available. I'll be sending it out tomorrow in an email. You'll definitely get it because it's going out to everybody who RSVP'd to the Zoom call. Any final words, Bonnie?
No, do you have this thing?
Oh wait, mine's not doing. There it goes. This is that a new Zoom feature? I've never seen that before.
I think it is. I think it is. It usually happens to me by accident. I'll do a thumbs up or something and it does something weird. See.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, just thank you so much for having me. We really, Kat and I have this in common that we very much want to see you succeed. We're here to help you any way that we can. We made it to the other side. We love what we do and we love helping people do the same. So you're in good hands.
Thank you. I love that. Well, we'll go ahead and end on that note. So thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.